So every year for the past 3 or so, I've kind of rounded off the end of December with my favorite and sometimes least favorite games of every year in sort of a celebration of everything that got released over the past 12 months. Well, this year I'm not going to do anything like that. At all. Because frankly, 2017 just doesn't deserve it. I swear, almost every gamer reaches this point. And I suppose with how jaded I am, it was only a matter of time. But for me, 2017 was the year where I realized that video games just suck. They suck, man. And no, video games as a concept do not suck. They're a hobby. I can choose to just not divulge in them, obviously. But the logistics and all the auxiliaries that come with video games suck. And 2017 was such a perfect example of why. Where do I even begin? I guess for the most part for me, 2017 was spent playing last year's titles. Forza Horizon 3, more of Destiny 1, obviously, Overwatch, a couple more Doom playthroughs. I even beat The Last Guardian again, that was fun. Well, I suppose I could start with the whole loot box thing. The fact that every AAA company decided they wanted to gut every one of their games like a fish to suit this awful gambling economy that objectively made every one of their games inferior. For me, the biggest offender of this was actually Middle-earth: Shadow of War. I know it's not the most popular example, but we'll get to that. Its predecessor, Shadow of Mordor, is one of my favorite games of all time. I absolutely loved everything about its gameplay and combat. So much so that, even if it may have seemed monotonous, I never got tired of it even through to the very end. Shadow of War managed to take that game that thrived on making tedium totally bearable with exciting and snappy combat, and turning it into something actually tedious. And it was all thanks to that stupid loot box system. The fact that you trudge through most of the game, especially the end at a snail's pace with the game constantly nagging you to buy stuff all the while, is absolutely offensive to the source material, and to the excellent first game that really deserves better treatment than this. Of course, there were other big offenders, a lot of them being games I just don't care about. But like I said, I'm saving the other big ones. I mean, 2017 wasn't all bad. It actually started off excellent, with games like Gravity Rush 2, Yakuza 0, Nier Automata, Persona 5, all Japanese games really. These games absolutely killed it as excellent follow-ups to their series, almost all of them probably being the best entries yet. I would say the one exception is maybe Gravity Rush, but it was still good, really good. I mean, this was a great start, and then the summer saw the Nintendo Switch spring to life. I'm glad to see a Nintendo console doing well again, honestly. Splatoon 2 and Mario Kart and ARMS all happened, so that was cool. And then Tekken happened. I don't know how often I say it, but Tekken's my favorite fighting series. I absolutely adore it, and Tekken 7 was possibly the best mainline entry yet. All of the new additions were a blast to learn and play. The fighting felt more fluid and responsive than ever. The online actually wasn't a complete train wreck at launch. I'm looking at you, Street Fighter V. And all in all, it was a great package. Now let's go back to the sucky stuff. How about Ubisoft, eh? Well, actually, considering Ubisoft's track record of being completely terrible 99.9% of the time, this wasn't a bad year for them. After Nintendo decided to copy their usual design philosophy of open-ended level design with plenty of padding, zero sense of direction, and no sense of proper reward versus time investment, and did it with absolute perfection, Ubisoft turned right around and gave us Mario and Rabbids Kingdom Battle, a game way better than it has any right to be. Absolutely nailing the polish and charm we so often associate with Nintendo games, on top of excellent gameplay. It's just too bad everything else they made this year was bad. Ubisoft, For Honor. This is one of the most brilliant ideas you guys have ever had. And only you could still find a way to make it boring and uninteresting, and just feel like a giant waste of time. How do you do that? It's gotta be a talent. I mean, you do have the premiere series about assassinating people, and you guys have made that boring for a decade, so I don't know why I'm shocked. Speaking of that, Assassin's Creed Origins. I mean, it's better, I guess, than the last one. That isn't saying much, and it isn't even better by much. Hey Ubisoft, at least Black Flag was fun because you gave players something to do other than play the main campaign that's historically never been good. I mean, you tried in Origins, but maybe just make a game all about the Black Flag side stuff next time. Then it might actually be fun. Take-Two broke basketball, Bethesda took all of the fun out of Wolfenstein, frickin' South Park and game-breaking DRM in 2017. Ubisoft, come on! I mean, Yooka-Laylee wasn't that bad. I know people really didn't like it, but it was okay. Compared to a lot of other crap this year, it was pretty okay. A lot better than Mighty No. 9 was. And then, God, Electronic Arts. You incompetent, greedy, poisonous, single-minded, money-grubbing, skin-crawling, pathetic excuse for a game publisher. You broke Star Wars. You literally broke No, I'm not even going to call it that. I refuse. You guys have lost the right to that name. Disney maybe hasn't revoked the license yet, but I will. There are only 4 Star Wars Battlefront games, and it's these 4, okay? That's it. These are just Star Wars Electronic Arts bullshit edition, okay? Don't buy these. Even without all the DLC problems and the stupid microtransactions, these games just suck. They look and sound pretty, and that's it. Electronic Arts, you suck. And you broke soccer too. How are you even this incompetent? It's amazing. But honestly, I expect that from EA. I've always hated them as a company. And while they continue to find ways to astonish me with just how bad they can get, I'm never all that disappointed. No, my most disappointing game of the year was definitely Destiny 2. I mean, could it have been anything else? You all knew it was coming. Now, I'm not going to explain everything here because I've already done videos on this, but I just want you to understand the situation with this game and exactly why it was really so disappointing to me, okay? Destiny 1 was excellent. It started in a bad state, yes, but over the course of 3 years, it grew and developed into something truly wonderful. And from the get-go, the core of the game was really good, and that's what players latched onto. That's why I and so many millions of people stuck around even with so little to do in the game for so long, because of that potential. And by the end of Destiny 1, it had just about lived up to it. Now all that remained was slight retooling of the engine, a steadier stream of content, and a bit more meat on these strong bones. What could possibly go wrong, right? How about everything? Destiny 2 wasn't completely void of content, but that strong core I mentioned was gone, vanished into thin air, and what we were left with was a one-off experience in the guise of an MMO. A thoroughly emptier and more disappointing game than Destiny 1 could have ever hoped to be. And it too, like Shadow of War and Battlefront, not really Battlefront, was gutted to work with a stupid loot box system. The only problem is, this is actually a game about getting loot. Like more than the other two, even. It completely undermines the entire point of the looter part of the looter shooter, and the shooter part was nerfed into the ground. Destiny 2 sucks, and it has a hell of a lot more problems than Destiny 1 ever did, even from the start. It's still part of a fantastic world, it looks beautiful, it sounds beautiful, but that's about it. And the fact that Bungie had 3 years of player feedback to get this right makes it all the more inexcusable. Man, you see what I mean? It just gets me fired up, and sad at the same time. 2017 left a very bitter pill in my mouth, and I don't even want to swallow it. But Mario Odyssey happened. I mean, sure, the level design was inconsistent, but everything else was just so good. And Cuphead happened. The fact that happened at all is just, it's so wonderful. And my favorite game of all time got almost perfectly ported onto the PS4, as well as the Xbox and PC this time around, allowing just about everyone to experience it in its true definitive state. But then we get crap like Pokemon Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon, completely pissing all over the Pokemon franchise by selling itself as some totally new alternate universe game, but really just being the game that should have been sold to us last year. Except not really, because they somehow made it even worse. But Rime happened, and Neo happened, and Resident Evil 7 happened, and Sonic Mania. Do you see what I mean? 2017 really wasn't bad, but the bad stuff was just so bad. So upsetting, it just left me unable to get excited for the really good things. And that's what's unfortunate. But I mean, the future's looking bright. Ish. I don't want to eat my words, but I really can't quite see how 2018 will be as bad as this year was. There are a lot of exciting things coming, and I can't wait for it. I don't know if I'll ever be as starry-eyed as I once was. All my cynicism aside, it just got worse. Now, I hate to leave on a sad note, so even though I said I wouldn't be making a list, I did talk about my most disappointing game of the year. So it's only fair I name my favorite game of the year. Which game was it? The game I thought stood above all the rest. Well, it wasn't just my favorite game of this year. It's easily one of my all-time favorite video games. And that game is Horizon Zero Dawn. I want to keep this on the level, and I'll explain more in a later video. But there's a very crucial reason as to why I enjoyed this game and threw shade at that other game earlier. Open world games are a very tough sell for me. I like very few of them, meaning so few I can count them all on 2 hands. And busy work is just that, busy work. I don't find it compelling or fun, unless I feel like all the time put in is meaningful. And never in my life have I played an open world game that has achieved that as well as Horizon Zero Dawn. I'll admit, it took a couple hours to grow on me. But once it did, this game was phenomenal from start to finish. The world is amazing, beautiful in its every detail and nuance. The gameplay is exceptional. While having many of the elements most open world games have, it found a way to make every mechanic fun. Yes, even the crafting, also known as the worst idea video game developers have ever conceived and utilized en masse. Horizon Zero Dawn at its core is very standard for an open world game. But the thing is, The mechanics and the ideas that make up so many open world games these days, whether it be Far Cry or Assassin's Creed or Grand Theft Auto or whatever, those mechanics on their own are not inherently bad. What really matters is the time and effort put into those mechanics, into making them interesting. 7 years of development really shows with Horizon Zero Dawn. Nothing feels rushed or lazy or like an afterthought. Nothing feels like it's trying to harangue you into some awful mechanic just because the game says so. Very few side quests are simple in their execution. Almost all of them take great care to stand out. The locations are memorable. The events of the game are memorable. The story itself is one of the best I've experienced in a very long time, from beginning to end. The protagonist, Aloy, is the new gold standard for badass leading ladies. She's not forced to be some way, and she rarely lets the actions of others define her, leaving her both a strong enough presence in-game to know exactly who she is and how she behaves, while also leaving her just open-ended enough to where the player can make certain judgments about her for themselves. She's a treat to be with for the entire ride, even when she makes stupid mistakes and leaves you aggravated. It's always for the right reasons, because she's a good character. Again, I said the gameplay is great, but the combat specifically is so fun. Learning how each of the many enemies work is a real treat, especially the strongest enemies, which function as some of the best boss fights I've experienced in a long time. Top all of that off with one of the truly best DLC add-ons we've gotten in decades. An amazing score, and absolutely nothing in the way of predatory practices or microtransactions at all for that matter. And I can say without a shadow of a doubt that Horizon Zero Dawn is 2017's best game. I highly recommend it.